Nowadays, there are so many clothing brands being born each day. But the thing is, and the fact of the matter is that most of these brands won't make it to the 10-year mark. Most of them won't even make it to 5. But I'm going to give you 4 reasons why these brands won't make it to that mark. So let's discuss. Next, here I'm making the brand. What's up, everybody? Rob Norman here from Planet Brooklyn Academy, and this is Making the Brand, the series where I give you a little insight and knowledge on how to start a clothing brand, and if you already have one, how to make it better. As always, please hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything I drop when it drops. And as you guys all know, we are right now in the 100K game challenge. We are trying to get this channel up to 100,000 subscribers. Now, I know we are a ways away from actually achieving that, but if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And I believe that. So I want us to go out and try to get to that number. And I think we could do it in a year. So tell a friend to tell a friend and help us grow to that number. And let's make that a reality. That being said, let's jump into today's topic. Now, at the top of the video, I said that there are so many brands being born every day. And you guys see it on social media. Constantly, there are a new streetwear brand, there's another this brand being born. Every time I scroll through social media, I'm seeing a brand new clothing brand. Now, the reason why a lot of these brands won't last to 10 years is the reason why I'm giving you these 4 points. And they're very specific points, but they are things that hold tried and true to most of the brands that have been around for decades. So let's start with number 1, bad name branding. One of the biggest issues I see with a lot of these up-and-coming brands, they have bad names with them. And they may sound cool at the time, but the problem is that a lot of them name their companies after things like trending words because street phrase is kind of big or popular at the moment. They'll decide to use that as a name. And that may work for the moment, but the thing is that much like trends, words, slang, phrases, those things grow out over time and they're not big anymore. So think about maybe about 10 years ago, everybody was saying on fleek. And that was the cool thing to say. It was on every t-shirt. Everybody was saying it on television. Yes, it was cool back then. Anyone who had a company that named it on fleek, I can guarantee you there's a good chance that company is not around right now. Because people go, what is on fleek? Or that's not cool anymore. Why would you name your company that? And this is what's going to happen with a lot of these brands who name their brands after something that is hot or trendy right now. You shouldn't do that. Your name should mean something. Rule of thumb, think about your personal name first. See if your name is something cool that can be, put as a brand's name. If it isn't that, then think of some derivative of your name. Think of something that may have some meaning to the story of your brand. Case in point, think about Adidas, which we actually say it wrong. It's actually Adidas. And why is it called Adidas? Is because the founder, Adolf Dassler, the creator of Adidas, basically named his shoe company after himself. His nickname was Adi. So he took Adi and then he took Das from Dassler and put it together and became Adidas. That's why it's pronounced Adidas everywhere in Europe, because they know the proper saying and the story behind the name, whereas we say Adidas. But again, Adidas is built from the person's name, from his name, Adolf Dassler. So again, taking a play on words with your name, maybe that is something. Taking a word and creating a brand new word that has no meaning helps a lot, because people cannot put a meaning to something that doesn't have a meaning already. So you can create the narrative for that name. Those are things that help you go through time and stay around. Ralph Lauren, think about his name. It's just his name, but yet he's around. Those are brands that stick around because it's very simple. A name, you give something to a name. A name will evoke an emotion or give it some kind of life. That's what you can do with your name, using it for your brand or creating a name. But don't use something that everybody's using. Do not pick out a word from a song or use a band's name to create your fashion brand. It doesn't work. It will not last. In 10 years, people will not be saying those things or not be thinking about it, or it may not be mainstream. So you want to make sure your name is something that can transcend time, not just be held in looked at as a part of time that was very, prevalent for that word or that name. Now, number two, next biggest thing I always see a problem with is that most brands don't have an identity. Once again, a lot of these brands that I'm looking at on social media, they look just like the last brand that I scrolled past. No real identity. The only thing different about them is their logos. And that is a huge problem. If you do not have an identity, how are people supposed to connect with you? We're living in an age with social media where everybody wants to belong to some sort of tribe, whether it's the tribe that is with streetwear or a tribe that believes in, social equality. Whatever it is, people are trying to connect. If your brand is just a brand, it does nothing. If you create a clothing line that you're saying, well, I want to make these t-shirts that all offer sayings, that's great, but that doesn't tell me what your brand is about. Because once another company comes along and does the same thing you're doing, what makes you relevant anymore? The one thing that makes you relevant is your story, how people connect to you, how they see you. That's what you want. So think about what it is that what you're gonna base your brand around. What do you want your audience to know about you? What do you want the takeaway to be? As someone had wrote to me in a previous post, they had said to me how what they realize is that people do not care about product. They care about the image. And this is 100% true. People today do not care about the product as much as they care about the story. What does your brand stand for? You need to tell that story, and you need to make sure that it comes across in what you're doing. Whether you want to do shirts that have sayings or you want to do something totally different, make sure you stand for something. Because again, in 10 years, those brands that I'm looking at right now are just putting out products because they just want to be streetwear. They're just saying streetwear, but they don't have a concept behind it. Those brands aren't going to be around in 10 years. Some of them may not even be around in 5 years because a lot happens in between the changing of time. So make sure you have a story, something you stick to, and that follows your brand all the way through. Again, Ralph Lauren, when you think about that, the story doesn't have to be something so deep. It's very simple. Ralph Lauren's brand is built on this whole English aristocrat kind of image. The American dream, that lavish lifestyle. That's what it's built on. And that's all he has to do. That is the muse, that's the image it paints, and he follows behind that and sticks to that. And it works. His consumers know what they're going to purchase just by the image. They don't have to think about anything else. They know what it represents. These young brands need to develop that for their own brand if they want to stick around for the next 5 to 10 years. Number 3, which is a major one. A lot of these brands cannot transition into the next trend. The reason why I say that is a lot of them are hooked on a current trend. Whatever the current trend is right now is what they're doing. And they're making a lot of money doing it. The problem is they're not looking at what's to come. They're not looking at what the trend is going to be. And in a previous video, I talked about how trends go in cycles, basically fashion trends go in cycles, basically every 10 years. And that's coming to be a little bit of a shortening period now because things are starting to happen in more of 8-year gaps. Because of social media and everything happens so much more rapidly, that 10 years is now cut down to 8. So you'll start seeing trends changing. And we'll start to see what's going on in the market change again. You're going to start seeing streetwear go through another change. The problem is that these younger brands are just looking at what's happening right now, and they're making their money, which is great. But the problem is they're not trying to forecast what the next trend phase is going to be and how they're going to be relevant in that trend phase. So what they're doing right now will be great for 8 years. If they started at the beginning of this trend cycle, they'll be great. But as things start to change, if they're not on it, they're totally going to lose out. And basically, that's what's going to phase them out. And as I said, 10 years is most of them won't make it to, and that's normally because of the trend change. They won't survive. Now, I made a video a while ago about this, and I'll leave the link up here above for you guys to check it out, to click on. But I did a video basically talking about how to extend the life of your brand, how to be able to stay relevant with your current times, and as time changes, how to move along with the trends and how to cater to the new trend as well as the upcoming trends. And I created a concept basically called Dragon Ball Theory. And when you watch that video, you'll understand what I mean by the Dragon Ball Theory, and it really simplifies the concept of how to make your brand stretch. Now, one of the things that they don't realize with trend changing is that as they create these brands right now, they don't realize that their consumer currently is going to get older. And that consumer is not going to wear the same thing that they wore 5 years ago. So if you're still making t-shirts with big sayings on them, your consumer has moved on. And a younger consumer that's coming up may not find what you're doing so on trend for them. They're looking at the brands that's coming up with them currently. So you have to be able to adapt. And most of these brands aren't adapting. They have tunnel vision. They're just focused on what they're doing right now. And that's all they're thinking about. They're not thinking about what's to come. And if they think about that, they'll make it. But I tell you right now, majority of these brands are not thinking about it. And they will not make it past 5 or to the 10-year mark. So they have to really think about that. Last but not least, which is kind of connects all these things I've been talking about, pretty much a lot of these brands do not have any vision, future vision. They're just looking, again, as I just said, they're looking at what's going on now. But besides looking at trends, what they're not looking at is what is their end game. If they're being successful right now in their lane, if they're just doing menswear, have they thought about expanding into women's wear? Have they thought about expanding into children's wear? Have they thought about, let's go outside of the US market and let's sell to the European markets because our brand could probably do well there? If they haven't thought about that, have they thought about wholesaling their brand to other retailers besides just selling from themselves off their online stores or selling out of their own stores? Have they thought about selling wholesale? Have they also thought about maybe licensing their brand? Because you can license your brand outside of the country. So instead of doing it here, you can just run your brand here and then outside in Canada, Japan, Germany, license it and let them carry out your brand over there. There are a lot of brands from the 90s that are still selling overseas that you don't hear about here, but they're selling over there because there's a license deal and they're selling. Is that something you want for your brand? Is that your exit strategy? At the end of the day, what are you trying to do? Yes, you're making money now with your brand or you're just starting to make money with your brand, but what is the end game? What is your exit strategy? Most of these brands aren't thinking of this. How do you want to get out of this game? Do you think that maybe you want to actually sell your brand? Do you want to get your brand up to a certain number financially and then be able to sell it so that you can leave and live your life doing whatever you want, or maybe leave and start a new brand? What is the end strategy? Everybody comes in to make money, yes, but at the end of the day, what is the bigger picture of what you're trying to do? Because extending your brand by creating new streams of revenue, by licensing or wholesaling it, will help you go beyond the timeline of what you're doing now. So if you had a 2-3 year time shelf life right now, wholesaling it or license it will give you another 5 to 10 years. And then from there, you can figure out where you want to go with it. But again, thinking about how to extend the life of your brand. Think about your end game. Most of them are not thinking about that. So those are the 4 main reasons why a lot of these brands will not make it to 5 to 10 years in the industry. If you guys are watching this video right now and you have a young upstart clothing line or been around for the last 2-3 years, take heed to what I'm saying. Really start thinking about these things if you haven't considered them, especially the last one, thinking about your end strategy. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, please leave your comments below for any ideas. And I do want to say thank you for many of you who have left concepts for upcoming videos, which I have been considering and will be working on. I appreciate those because sometimes I'm trying to guess what's the next thing to do. And telling me what it is you guys would like to hear, I appreciate that. So I'm putting those things into the works. But if you have any ideas as well out there, leave them in the comment section below. And as always, if you haven't picked up my book, please grab the book called Making the Brand. It is down below. I'll leave a link down there for you guys. Check it out. I basically break down how to lay out a clothing brand from start to finish properly, how to really build a true, stable brand. Because again, as most of you know who have been with me through the years, you know that I have built many companies. I am a college professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology here in New York City. I've been teaching there for 13 years. And as well as designing for a bunch of other brands and then having my own brand and having previous brands. So I'm a veteran at this. I know what I'm talking about. So this book was necessary to make and it's been doing very well. So again, if you can't get in contact with me to talk, this book will help. All right, so that's it for this episode. I will catch you guys on the next episode. Till then, peace.